Call the meeting to order and say the pledge.
Whatever you decide.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Buchanan here.
Shabilsky here. Grosvenor here.
We're gonna be busy today.
Someone sitting in the audience.
Will.
Good. Okay. We have no correspondence. So let's get an approval for the minutes for our March 15th meeting.
Moved.
Seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Can I ask one question? One quick question.
Sure.
Do we have? I noticed that there was $75 of cost for credit card. Do we have a lot of people using the credit cards? Or?
Usually just one.
What is that? Is that for paying bills, or is that?
Just depends. Miscellaneous items that are best done, sometimes online, sometimes.
I see the fees approve them. I'm able to see what they got charged.
Oh, I was talking about the credit card processing.
Online payments.
Yeah.
We
Do we get a lot of them?
Yeah.
Or?
We get a lot more. A year ago, November, we went to Invoice Cloud, and we had a lot of people sign up right away. We do have a few.
No, I was just.
So we need a motion to approve or make a motion to approve the voucher.
Oh, second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Carried. We're on the water system performance.
Okay, this past month was a fairly light month in the water. We only had one water lateral repair. It was in the driveway and the road combination. That was a job in itself, but we have 3 new mailings that went out for the meter changeout program. Testing the meters, we're getting caught up with the meters finally. We rebuilt complete rebuilt of one hydrant due to the winter freezing from a contractor using a hydrant. Multiple valve box repairs related to winter snow plowing. And then attended the Rural Water Association conference in La Crosse. The March meter reading and billing was completed without any problems, going along real well. Past month, Dennis Sindrick gave his notice of intent to retire on March 18th after 33 years of service. Dennis's last day was April 1st. I'd like to congratulate Glenn Beardsley. He was promoted from Operator 1 to Operator 2 after previous years of cross-training. And
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
we have Jonathan Roberts was promoted to Operator 1 from Technician after he was deemed he had all the necessary credentials.
I knew what you meant.
And his cross-training. The two promotions will leave the water and sewer tech position open, and that will have to be filled in the future. Question?
That's good. Unfinished business. Item A, wholesale public water supply in Franklin 2024. The board may enter the closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.851E. Deliberate upon information.
This may be a good one. Do the other two first. This might be a good one to off to the.
Okay, you guys can do it. Let's do B. Water tower design update.
Well, I'm happy to say that we were able to get the plans completed, resubmitted to the city planning and engineering. We've requested a variance to the wetland buffer yard for the discharge pipe from the pond. Other than that, feel we're in pretty good shape with the city. Plans and specs also went to the DNR on April 8th and to the DOT on April 11th, so the process is moving forward. Still trying to reach out to the tank contractors to see how they'd like to bid this. I know we've talked about one prime contract, two prime contracts. We just want to make sure that it's as easy as possible. Internally, Jim, you can weigh in if you'd like, but we feel it would be easier with a single prime because you only have one point of contact at that junction. You have two contractors who are going to be doing this a lot. Oh, he did it. No, he did it. I don't know that I need the headache, but we will comply with whatever the tank suppliers tell us is to bid the project, and we will structure the bid form accordingly. We are looking at a 4-week bidding period. I need to work with Glenn to determine when the advertisement needs to go into the paper once we have those approvals, i.e. when does it get published versus when we can take the bids. It's going to require a Class 2 notice, so it's got to be published 2 consecutive weeks. I think we'll have a week between before we take bids. That would allow us the ability to do a pre-bid conference, and I think the pre-bid conference would probably be held in the field so they can see what they're getting into. Other than that, that's about it. Moving forward, now we're just waiting on the DNR and the DOT to give us the regulatory permits to move forward.
And do you have any kind of estimate on that, or that's?
I have not heard from them. I spoke to a gentleman by the name of, and now I'm not going to remember his name, Marty somebody or another, that I logged the plans with. He told me he'd get back to me later this week when it's as to what their backlog is right now.
Item C, water systems abandoned analysis.
So, if you recall, last week passed out the memo and I gave you the opportunity to go back, read it. Let me know if you had any comments. I haven't heard any. If you have comments now, but it's kind of a mind twister to think that we're going to continue to grow in the future, but our demands are going to go down. And you guys are okay with it. As you've had a month to think about it, I can start showing this to various folks that we're talking to and say these are what we anticipate as our demands. It took me a while to wrap my mind around the fact that we're going to continue to grow, but overall demands are going down.
The analysis is wrong.
It's all guesses. I mean, like the last time, it was a guess, and we had some time to think about it and look at some of the trends. We have a new guess.
What margins do you build in when pipe and everything? More than off?
Yeah, it's always a little larger than. But you never try to design it exact. So.
I thought I had. Sorry. I had one question. It was. Can't write it down last.
You're welcome to
I
still
could just-
ask it, but if you could at least, if you will adopt it, that way we can start showing this to folks.
Do we need a motion to adopt?
So,
Second that?
Those in favor say aye.
I
Motion carried.
I'm sorry, who made that motion?
I'll call it. I'll just.
And then the 7A, to cover that word first.
Sure.
New business?
Did they vote? Yes.
Yes. New business, item A, planning of chlorinated and fluorinated water on an emergency basis.
So, we've had a discussion what would happen if we were to say connect to Milwaukee and a combination of their water, and if we had to connect to say Oak Creek, we had to that transition when that were to happen. So I've asked Jim Smith of Applied Technology to put together a little memo, do some research, and give us an opinion of what it is. This conversation right now is expected to really just talk about the memo, and he's going to walk you through the memo. If you want to continue the conversation about what it might mean when we negotiate or discuss with other parties, then we can do that in closed session under the unfinished business. That's why I made this first.
Hi, I'm Jim Smith. Does everybody have a copy of the memo?
We do.
I brought a few extras just in case. Good late night reading for you. You know, sometimes I explain it to my wife, and if she can stay awake through the whole thing, then normal. But anyway, it's just to get back to the basics as far as Milwaukee Water Works. They use a chlorinated chloramine. Basically, you take chlorine and then you add ammonia to it right after the chlorine. Milwaukee's water system actually has a primary disinfectant. They have ozone up front. And they go through the treatment process, adding chlorine at the end, and then adding ammonia. That makes chloramines, which is a disinfectant. You know, it's not as strong a disinfectant, what we call free chlorine. And that's what Oak Creek uses. And basically, it's just chlorine without ammonia, without getting into all the chemical characteristics. But it's a much stronger disinfectant. But there are some other issues with chlorine. A lot of large communities and a lot of communities have been going over to chloramination versus free chlorine. And that's because one was there's not as much what they call disinfection byproducts with it. It's kind of a fancy word for a strong oxidant like chlorine can make other chemicals along with it called trihalomethanes, other things, methane, and take off the hydrogen on it, add some chlorine on it. But basically, there are less disinfection byproducts. And also, chloramines have been noted to last longer in the water distribution. It's a longer acting disinfectant, not as strong as disinfectant chlorine. So, and it's been around for, I don't know, and probably no more than 80 years. I mean, it isn't like something that they just invented. Chloramines have been used quite extensively. So, kind of the question was, well, what happens if you have to mix? And again, this is on an emergency basis because Oak Creek still uses free chlorine, and you mix it with the Milwaukee water. All of a sudden, somehow, everything goes bad and you can't either pump it, their main distribution, whatever, and we have to utilize Oak Creek's water. What will happen to the water quality? There have been cases where people have mixed on a normal basis chloraminated water and free chlorine water. What I could find in the literature and talking and really talking with people is there really hasn't been taste and odor issues. And the taste and odor issues really come from the chloramine. What you have is monochloramine. You keep adding more chlorine to it, you get dichloramine, or you get what they call trichloramine. Those at lower concentration can cause some taste. But, what I found in talking with and looking at the literature is that really hasn't been an issue more than anything as far as combining. As a matter of fact, and I didn't totally cover it in here, there are large communities that actually switch over, normally have chloraminated water, that will actually switch over for a month or two and actually use free chlorine. Dan probably knows that this is actually to prevent the nitrification from occurring in this. And like Washington, D.C. does it, where they actually send out notifications to people saying, hey, we're switching over. In fact, right now as we speak, the entire Washington, D.C. area is switching over from chloramines to free chlorine. And they do it for this issue that can occur with nitrogen.
So you say a month at a time, how often do you do it?
They do it every year. Every year, and they do it for, let's see. Actually, I did copy off, this is what they send out.
And they have also notification issues in the fall when they go back.
This is what they change over every year, and they do it for 6 to 8 weeks, it says on the front. This actually has a nice little thing that they send out to. So, I guess getting back to the question of mixing the two waters, I wouldn't be as concerned about on an emergency basis. Because like I say, there are communities that do it every year. I mean, they just go and do it. So obviously, they don't flush their entire system that has fluor-aminated water when they start adding chlorine. It's mixing. So, and again, this is one of the problems. The reason they do it is because fluoramines can degrade, they decay back to ammonia. And this is where ammonia, when I mentioned nitrification, the ammonia converts to what we call nitrite. And this is biologically, thin films in the distribution system converts to nitrite and nitrate. That can cause other both health issues. You've heard of nitrates in a lot of times groundwaters, up north, up in the Plover area and that, where they put on so much fertilizer, it goes right down into the groundwater, and they get nitrates of like above the standards of 10 milligrams per liter. That's the problem with eventually nitrates. Causes what they call the blue baby syndrome, methaglobinemia. If it gets too high, there are places that have to remove nitrates. In fact, nitrate removal system for Gallo Winery out in California, the largest winery in the world. They have levels of 30 and 40 milligrams per liter. Hell, the whole San Joaquin Valley is nitrates good. All the farms out there, they just load it up with fertilizer. It's there. So anyway, I thought that was an interesting comment that Washington, D.C. and the Fairfax County, all of them actually go back to chlorine. I don't think, Dan, I don't think you guys were looking. I think it's really more of concern for the nitrification, the decay. And that's where, when I was talking with, kind of doing some research, originally starting with Milwaukee Water Works, to find out who boosts their disinfection out there. In other words, in the distribution system, when they send it to like Menominee Falls or New Berlin, do they actually boost chlorine? And most of them have the capabilities of boosting chlorine. They've been switching over, and I had described, I talked to Tom Nennick, who does Brown Deer's water, and they've switched over to being able to put in chlorine and ammonia to boost back chloramines. In fact, he even said Menominee Falls just bid out a project to do that in the 2 booster stations. They have Milwaukee Water to add in chloramines in it. I think the bottom line is on this is that, if down the road you're going with Milwaukee Water Works, is to have, number one, you'll be monitoring for chloramines in the system. You'll be monitoring additionally for nitrites, nitrates, and ammonia. But to have the capabilities of boosting chloramines basically back in this, nothing unusual. So I'm not sure if Waukesha was planning on some type of chloramines. Yep. So that makes a lot of sense.
So, saying our towers would be taps in and some pumps of some sort. Have the pumps ready, and if Scud missiles in Milwaukee, go out and get a couple tips of something to boost our water with, or how's that work?
Okay, I'm not sure I would worry about it if it would say, then you're getting Oak Creek's water on that. Again, I would just do monitoring. I don't think it's going to be an issue then taking Oak Creek's free chlorine water and mixing. Just don't forget, it's unless it's in the tower, it's not going to be mixing distributions. And again, during that time, there may be some taste and odor issues. We may have Mike out there doing a little more flushing, the system. You'll be monitoring it, but more concern is that you don't get a drop in chloramine residuals out of this. But I'd still have that capability of being able to boost in case there is decay of the chloramine disinfectant. That is what you want to still be able to do. Again,
Worst case scenario, you just
What-
flush everything.
in like Menominee Falls case, they're far out in the system. And they go really far out into the system. Basically to the divide. So they're long runs from where Milwaukee adds, because they add their chlorine and ammonia at the water plant. And they try to maintain 1.5 milligrams at the water plant discharge. But I think having that capability of being able to boost is something you'll want to pursue. And whether it's at the towers, or if there's a booster station.
We switch because of the chloramines and some of the byproducts add to maintenance costs in our system. Significant, have we factored? Is it like a greater degradation of parts more often? I just want to make sure we factored some of that in, if it impacts some material.
I don't believe, the chloramines themselves.
Byproduct.
Oh,
I mean, it says on here that it can ruin if you don't have the right rubber stuff in your stuff.
that's usually with the chlorine.
That's just with the chlorine?
That's usually with the chlorine. Okay. And obviously you're getting chlorine right now.
Yep.
So anybody that's had parts that,
Good.
yeah,
That's good.
chloramines are not as strong of an oxidant. Now, the one issue with chloramines is because it isn't as strong as free chlorine, there were studies along the way that initially said there was maybe some more leaching of lead. You guys probably got into that too. But they had orthophosphates. Milwaukee does. A couple parts per million coming out of the plant. And they theorized a little bit of that because chlorine itself is such a strong oxidant that it thought maybe put a film on any of the letter. I'm not even sure how many letter surfaces you eat. Not an issue.
We don't think.
I didn't think so. So.
Well, one of the reasons this came up is because AWB manual, they actually tend to avoid finding different, right? But I had on here the notes, but we have a ability at the water. Those are at the station. We'll have to find that out. See if we chloramine. Because I think if we're going to have to boost, we're going to probably chloramine.
I would agree.
Well,
100%.
Based off of, especially off of that. And then, Mike, you're going to have system. Ammonia, nitrate. You're going to be especially that's. We just got to come up with trying to figure out what the costs are, and including our that high, but.
Correct.
No.
Yeah, because it's the nitrification issue is more of an issue. And it is interesting that a lot of the people actually go and convert back to, now Milwaukee does not try to convert, go to free chlorine to actually kill off what we call the nitrifiers that are in the distribution system. And there, again, it's just, but it shouldn't be an issue if we can make sure that we maintain adequate chloramine residuals in the system. Now, it's interesting that the Wisconsin DNR only says they want to see detects, that it's detectable. So similar to the free chlorine, if you get a detect, where the Safe Water Partnership always says it should be a minimum for the chloramines of a half a part per in the system. And I think that's an appropriate standard to really look at versus just getting a detect.
But it's different monitoring.
Yeah. So,
Well, I believe the flushing would have to have also or the nitrogen.
Early on, before you show probably
yeah, I mean, when I know when North Shore Water, they had a thing on conversion chlorine, which they sent out to everybody. I would see something similar to this going on. Again, some of the chloramine thing has to do also with dialysis machines.
that's the other thing.
Right.
Aquarium, and if there's any fish that are sold. fish don't like chloramines.
Right. You have to cancel Friday fish fries during Lent. Chlorine. But anyway, this was North Shore Water Commission when they did there, which actually has some of these items: aquatic life owners, kidney dialysis. It really shouldn't be an issue.
Just so if we do go with Milwaukee, we're just gonna have to have a plan or if there's enough at the
Trying to imagine, so we should, if we should go to Milwaukee, and we're going to dose it, you have to be in Franklin, because the fear is what happens if something were to happen where we couldn't get Milwaukee water, which you can't pump it from there. Right? It have to be pumped somewhere on our side.
Yeah, I was trying to get a hold of Menominee Falls to see how their bids came.
So this is the science part. I wanted to present this science. I told Peggy earlier today, science is science, so this is open session. And like I said, how it relates to other discussions we can have later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope it wasn't too.
Good. I was hoping you'd have like samples that you could smell and taste the difference. I guess it would be great by the time you got it.
Now I'm gonna get yelled at because you said charts.
Okay, unfinished business A, wholesale public water supply to Franklin 2024. The board may enter into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute 1985, 1E to deliberate on the information, terms, and provisions of the potential provision of public water supply to the city of Franklin as related to the city, Franklin Municipal Water Utility and its customers in 2024 and beyond, and the potential negotiation of terms in relation thereto, including not limited to potential amendments to the agreement for Oak Creek to provide water for wholesale Franklin. Potential agreement terms with alternate public water supply sources, including but not limited to the City of Milwaukee, Milwaukee Water Works, and financial analysis study of long-term water supply, and the investing of public funds and governmental action in relation thereto for competitive and bargaining reasons, to re-enter open session at the same place thereafter to act upon matters discussed therein as it deems appropriate. Is there a motion to do so?
So moved.
I'll second.
By roll call, all those in favor?
Yeah, guy.
Jadowski, aye.
Over aye.